And greetings. Happy Wednesday to all of you. We are live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. I'm Steve Deace, and one last day here in Scottsdale, Arizona. I've got a travel day tomorrow. So we've got an entire Theology Thursday evergreen lined up for you tomorrow. We have been waiting to unleash this particular one. So apparently the timing is right for it to be tomorrow. So you'll get an original episode tomorrow while I am traveling, but it will be an entire Theology Thursday evergreen. So hopefully you'll enjoy that. I've greatly enjoyed being down here in Arizona this week, getting some sun. What an incredible event last night at Real Men by Trinity Church with Pastor Mark Driscoll. Over 600 guys in the room, maybe another 600,000 will be watching online at any particular point in time. Just really an incredible event. And I got a chance to have so many of you guys came up that were there last night, came up to talk to me after the fact and to talk about either the talk I gave last night and then a lot of you about the show and how much it has inspired you guys. And Todd and Aaron back there in frigid Des Moines, although it's going to warm up here as the week goes on. A lot of kind words for you two guys as well. So I wanted to make sure to pass those along here before we got going here with the rest of the program. Brought to you by our friends over at First Cup Coffee Company. They've got a flavor for every freedom-loving American, and they share the same core values that you do. So don't just get it for that reason. Get it also because, and mostly because, it's great coffee. All right, use my last name, Deace, as your promo code when you go to firstcup.com. That's firstcup.com. Use the promo code Deace at firstcup.com. Again, that's promo code Deace. Well, today is Wednesday, so we've got a traditional Wednesday lineup for you. We'll start buy, sell, or hold coming up at the bottom of the hour, and that's when you get to take over the agenda for the program. We'll be joined by our friend, colleague, the prophet of woe and lamentation, Daniel Horowitz. He'll be joining us here towards the end of the program, but let's get it started with Aaron's rundown of what happened while we were away.
What happened while we were away, brought to you by The Rot Goes Deep. As optimistic as I am, and I think you should be, we got a stark illustration yesterday of just how far down the rot of progressivism and Marxism goes as President Trump and Vice President Vance attended a so-called prayer service at the National Cathedral, where they were harangued and hectored by a literal witch. Here is Episcopal Bishop David French spewing demonic garbage right to the faces of Trump and Vance.
My master, Sauron the Great, bids thee welcome.
Whoops, strong clip.
In the name of our God, I ask you to have mercy upon the people in our country who are scared now. There are gay, lesbian, and transgender children in Democratic, Republican, and independent families, some who fear for their lives. And the people who pick our crops and clean our office buildings, who labor in poultry farms and meatpacking plants, who wash the dishes after we eat in restaurants and work the night shifts in hospitals, they may not be citizens or have the proper documentation, but the vast majority of immigrants are not criminals.
Okay, that wasn't actually David French. It was some witch named Marianne Budd. Trump reacted afterwards.
I didn't think it was a good service, no. Thank you very much.
Thank you, press. Thank you, press.
They can do much better.
Moving on, the Trump administration has moved to end affirmative action in federal contracting and directed that all federal diversity, equity, and inclusion staff be put on paid leave by 5 p.m. this evening and eventually be laid off. As part of the move, Trump signed an executive order rescinding Lyndon Johnson's executive order 11,246, which established affirmative action and banning all federal contractors and publicly funded universities from practicing race-based discrimination, including DEI. What a massive shift. Trump was also joined by tech CEOs at the White House yesterday to announce a major private sector investment into AI infrastructure.
Together, these world-leading technology giants are announcing the formation of Stargate. So put that name down in your books, because I think you're going to hear a lot about it in the future. A new American company that will invest $500 billion at least in AI infrastructure in the United States and very very quickly, moving very rapidly, creating over 100,000 American jobs almost immediately.
Oracle CEO Larry Ellison is one of those tech CEOs, and he explained further details about what he hopes the new age of AI will help accomplish as it pertains to mRNA technology.
Once we gene sequence that cancer tumor, you can then vaccinate the person, design a vaccine for every individual person to vaccinate them against that cancer. And you can make that vaccine, that mRNA vaccine, you can make that robotically, again using AI, in about 48 hours. So imagine early cancer detection, the development of a cancer vaccine for your particular cancer aimed at you, and have that vaccine available in 48 hours. This is the promise of AI and the promise of the future.
Check this out. Yesterday at a meeting between Speaker Johnson, President Trump, and Vice President Vance, Johnson recorded Vance's first time seeing the Oval Office in person.
Good to see you too. Wow. This is J.D. Vance's first time to step into the Oval Office. It's incredible.
That might just be the best illustration of Vance's personal story, going from abject poverty to one of the most powerful offices in the world. The U.S. Coast Guard on Tuesday announced the deployment of personnel and equipment to various maritime borders in the United States a day after President Trump dismissed the military branch's woke DEI-obsessed leader. In a statement, Coast Guard Acting Commandant Admiral Kevin Lunday said Coast Guardmen would work to detect and deter illegal immigration in support of Trump's executive orders issued this week. Border Czar Tom Homan says he's already seeing a massive change at the southern border.
Because in 2 days, the last 24 hours, total apprehensions on the southwest border, 766. Compare that to the 10 to 12,000 Biden had at one time. CBP-1 releases, 0. CHNV, Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, Venezuela releases, 0. Total of 766 across the entire southwest border. That is a game changer.
More than 20 House Republicans are backing a bill that would repeal the law used by former President Biden's administration to prosecute dozens of pro-life activists. Representative Chip Roy from Texas is leading the effort to repeal the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances, or FACE Act, which has been selectively invoked to target pro-lifers who have protested peacefully outside of abortion clinics. Also this week, in the Trump executive order outlining the definition of man and woman and forcing the federal government to use those and only those terms, the White House cleverly snuck in life at conception into that executive order as they defined, quote, female means a person belonging at conception to the sex that produces the large reproductive cell, and male means a person belonging at conception to the sex that produces the small reproductive cell. And finally, you also may have heard that longtime president of Planned Parenthood, Cecile Richards, died this week from brain cancer. She oversaw and promoted the murder of at least 4 million babies and oversaw the purchase and distribution of their dismembered and maimed body parts. Here's this from the Babylon Bee. Clump of cells dies at 67. That may be the most prophetic and righteously vicious headline that outlet has ever come up with. And that's what happened while we were away.
If I was capable, I'd give that headline the Spock one eyebrow. But I can't do that. That is a damn. Aaron's montage brought to you by our friends over at Farmer Bill's. If you're like me, you grew up on beef jerky. Heck, I'm still growing on beef jerky at 51. It's a must-have for the road trip, but if you've read the ingredients, have you seen what they're putting in your beef jerky? Here's just a few things: maltodextrin, MSG, synthetic nitrates, artificial flavors, a lot of times tons of sugar, allergens like ultra-processed soy and gluten. Not to mention, they often use the lowest quality imported beef. So here's your solution. Enter Farmer Bill. Farmer Bill's Provisions is a rancher-owned meat processor that sells pastured, raised meat snacks. They make a unique product called Biltong. It's like beef jerky, but without all the bad stuff. And folks, it's absolutely delicious. We've all tried it. It's really good. Here are their ingredients: beef, apple cider vinegar, sea salt, toasted coriander, clove, white and black pepper. That's it. And it's great. That's right. No added sugars, chemical preservatives, because the biltong is made with an old traditional method of air drying and curing. Unlike modern jerky, which is dehydrated and baked, it's absolutely delicious. You can try the 4-pack sampler right now. Get the bestseller bundle, which includes the 4-pack, a half-pound slab, and 2 of their grass-fed moisturizing tallow bombs for that wintry, dry skin. You can't beat it. It's from the grasslands of South Dakota, and even has American bison biltong as well. So grab it all for 10% off with the code Steve when you go to Farmer Bills Provisions, SNS, farmerbillsprovisions.com, farmerbillsprovisions.com, and use the code Steve to get 10% off. Let's talk worldview and then politics first and foremost with Trump's the prayer service that he attended yesterday for the first full day of his administration. And you've got the cat lady, witch heretic up there, who's now getting, I guess, platformed on The View and everything else. And she'll get applauded by a bunch of people that would never enter her or anybody else's churches for that matter. So, I mean, it's 15 minutes of fame. Guys, I kind of have two views on this. Theologically, I think that was a huge positive. And I think that, you know, there's a lot of people in normie and righty America that have not been discipled and have not been properly catechized. And and they're demonstrating by the way they're voting, by the way they're activating, that they have a lot of the right moral instincts. But because they haven't been properly discipled or catechized, they don't understand the depth of the reality of what they're up against. And then it's going to take more, even as great as yesterday was, and all three of us were fanboying yesterday. As great as yesterday was, it's going to take more than even a president is capable of doing to uproot the source of the evil that we are up against. But first, you've got to be exposed to what that is. And as the guy that executive produced a film that I think does a pretty good job at exposing evil for what it is. And I heard from even a lot of people last night, man, your movie really rocked my world. I've heard from a couple of guys, your movie is one of the reasons we're here. I mean, it really opened me up to the idea of evil and what it means and what then, and made me seek out what could be done about it. I think theologically, that was a huge moment for the country. That even if we took, you know, all of our biggest evangelical, Bible-based Christian platforms in America, and our show, by God's grace, would be one of the biggest ones too. If we took up all of us together, we couldn't build a critical mass into the general population to show that level of crazy. But Trump being there, and on top of that, I think also the reactions that they had as a group, as a family, kind of like the, you know, are you kidding me looks. Like there wasn't any genuflecting or pandering at all. You could get a sense of boredom to disgust. J.D. Vance's reaction. All men have been where J.D. Vance was sitting yesterday. We've all been there, bro.
Even Tiffany Trump,
being lectured to by that chick.
Even Tiffany Trump is like, well, what the hell is this?
Exactly.
Crap.
And see, even again, I don't know how many of those people. I know JD's a relatively recent convert to Christianity. I don't know how many of those people truly understand the source of what they're up against. Where did this all come from? That woman is the source, or she's closer to the source than the political manifestations that they're now fighting at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue every day. And I think using him as a conduit to expose more of this to the culture, because when you strip away the talking points and you make them expose what they really are, even in our sinful state. Remember, we're totally depraved. We're not utterly depraved. Even in our soul, in our sinful state, unless we're completely given over to the spirit of the age, even if we don't even know who the true king of the universe is yet, in our sinful state, because we're still made in his image, we're like, what in the Sam Hill is this? What is this? We instinctively know we're not supposed to go to church and hear stuff like this. It's why if you're a believer and you act poorly, unbelievers will say to you, that's just not how I expected a Christian to behave. They know. This is what Paul means by a law unto ourselves. They know. I knew when I was an unbeliever. They know too. And so I think theologically that was a necessary moment yesterday for way more of the general culture, the normie culture, to see that than we could produce, even if we put ourselves together via critical mass, theologically anyway. Thoughts on that really quick?
Yeah, the Iowa Capitol just had a demon statue. The National Cathedral actually has a real demon. It's really remarkable. It's the National Cathedral, folks. All right? She didn't like slip in through the back door. That's the front door. And she's throwing a party. Here's why. I said as much on Monday, and then I tweeted it after I saw her speak. When Steve, when we were watching with Bob Vanderplatz, and your last question, Steve, is where does the church fit in all of this? And I said what I tweeted. I said, whatever return to common sense that is going on here, people realize things have gotten a little crazy. The instincts are kicking in, just like you said, Steve. It's happening without the formal church, or it's even happening with the opposition of the formal church.
Yes.
That's a gigantic problem. And we've got all kinds of ridiculous skirmishes right now amongst all brands of conservative Christians, pretending like it's 1500 again and we want to refight the Reformation. Catholics, Protestants, and the demon is holding court. The worldview thing, folks, we are utterly broken, even on the so-called conservative Christian side. We got to get our crap together. Because there's no way, even if this thing is going in the right direction right now, we feel like saying it's not sustainable if the church remains what it is.
Amen. You dropped a phrase there, Steve. This is not something, the depth to progressivism, Marxism, whatever you want to call it, the depths to which that goes, the rot to which that goes is not something that even a president can really dig out of by himself. I want to say it's something that pastors collectively, that's really where it begins. Do they know what time it is? Do they understand the gift that they have been given here over the next 4 years to really start tearing down? I dropped this phrase on Monday after the inauguration. Can you tear down the high places in your own community? Can you do that? What are the high places? What are the high places? That's going to your library. That's the public funding of things that God says are evil. Can you tear those down in your own community?
Amen to both of you. Todd, the observation in particular you just made right there about this happening either without or from an objection from the church is catastrophic. That is correct. Because ultimately we cannot in our own flesh, even with the best of intentions, the most learned of philosophies, defeat a level of evil like this. We simply can't do it. We're not built to do it. We're sinners ourselves. We can't do it. It's not possible. And what I find fascinating, Trump's instant reaction walking out of there. Yeah, that didn't go very well. I stop and I ask myself, how many of our sweater vested, pleated khaki, Hawaiian shirt wearing pastors? And you know what? Let me make this more personal to all of us. Do you go to a church with a pastor that would show that clip and say, that's not good? Could at least rise to the base level of disgust that, a guy who 40 years ago bragged or 60 years ago bragged trying to avoid STDs was his personal Vietnam. Is that possible? Could you get your pastor to do that? Could you get your pastor to maybe demonstrate the level of just baseline disdain and disgust for what went on in the National Cathedral yesterday, that a guy who by his own admission really just started seriously reconsidering God and the role he's playing in his life when he damn near got shot in the face on July 13th of last year? Can we get, forget the black robed regiment, could we get the sweater vested brigade to show at least that level of, hell no. Listen, man, I don't care. Could you even get to the point of, I don't care about your culture war, I don't care about elections, but y'all just need to know I wouldn't be doing my job. Just, that's heresy. That's not the gospel. That's another gospel. Man, if we could just get to that point, from there, where if the church would establish that, that's not even its job yet, by the way. Okay, I want to make that very clear. That's not even its job yet. But if we could just get to that baseline level of mediocrity, what you could then ask for and probably receive from your political leadership from that time forward is way beyond what we've seen for the last generation. We aren't going to be able to do this without the church, and we certainly are not going to be able to win this without the church. So I wanted to address that moment theologically first. Let's talk about it politically. I've seen this take from a few people this morning, Matt Walsh, Jesse Kelly, hat tip to them. And I think they're right, actually, that the early hours of the Trump presidency are so much more relentless, polished, and disciplined than what we saw at any point for any extended period of time his last time around. And so because of that, a message has to be sent. Barack Obama would never, his staff would have never walked him into a situation where like Franklin Graham or a pastor like that takes the pulpit at the National Cathedral and says, repent for the taking of innocent lives. Would never happen. His staff would not do that. And I think because they've been running such a tight ship there, it's very clear this was not plotted or planned. This was not 4D chess. This was not something they actually wanted to provoke to expose it. You can see from the reactions of Trump, Vance, and those with them, they did not anticipate this on any level whatsoever. And so therefore, I think politically, some kind of message has to be sent. Someone's got to be reassigned. Someone has to be fired. Just to again, make sure everyone understands we're not doing the bleep we did before. If we're not stepping on rakes, all right, we're not doing that, okay? There are going to be plenty of days over the next 4 years that events beyond our geopolitical events beyond our control will occur, and we're going to have to jerry-rig this thing like Captain Kirk on the bridge of a damaged Enterprise in Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. You have to just figure it out, caught with your britches down. That's called being president of the United States. But what we're not going to do anymore is this amateur hour stuff. We're not going to step on rakes. I cannot have a staff that puts me in a position to be exposed to things like that. That's not winning politics here. And I kind of do think, just as they've gotten off on an excellent foot to start with in terms of messaging, discipline, execution. Aaron, your catch about how they even worded the executive order on the pro-life stuff to mix in gender and sex dysphoria and real science on gender as well. I mean, these guys it's very obvious, man. The homework was done. And so because of that, I think maybe another message does have to be sent. Some heads got to roll for that, just so that everybody else gets the message. Nope, we're not doing this. That's not happening again. To quote the great prophet Bill Belichick, who just so happens to be a close personal friend of Donald Trump, do your damn job. Thoughts on that?
Well, as great as she's been and deserves as much credit probably as anybody else for everything that's going on, that falls in Susie Wiles' lap. I mean, I don't know what underling you're going to get that makes that matter. I mean, this is where everybody's got to wake up. This was not like we didn't see this. It's the front. It's the National Cathedral. This was obvious. So everybody's on it, on the hook. They got to get wise as serpents as far as this is concerned. And it starts with a bunch of pastors. The demon statues just seem to come in and...
Hold on a second, Todd. Todd, that's a great point you just made. He's got a pastoral advisory team.
Yes.
They can't know it. No, like I don't necessarily, I don't know Susie Wiles at all. I don't know what her belief system is, but there's not a pastoral team that was like, hey, did you guys, or whoever, the advanced team, whoever it is, did you guys check out to see who the pastor was going to be, the minister was going to be? I mean, this is again, man, where I used to say when I was heavily involved in campaigns, no campaign can rise above its own candidate, but a campaign can drag a candidate down. So somebody has to know what they're walking into there. Todd, I'm sorry. Go ahead and finish your point.
But yeah, I'd rather you just get better advisors on this front than fire anybody. People who really know the lay of the land and are going to start doing what you're calling for in terms of pastors. Enough sitting on the sidelines. You're a joke. That's what I'd prefer.
Yeah, and given what we've seen from Susie Wiles so far, and throughout the latter part of the campaign, throughout the election season, and then in the intervening time between election and inauguration day, I'm guessing she is probably she's probably lit a fire under somebody in the West Wing. Hey, that does not happen again. That makes me look bad, actually. And she's not had too many of those moments, or any of those moments to this point. But yeah, I think it would be helpful just to send a message. Hey, no, this is fun. We're winning right now, but we need to be on pins and needles. Take nothing for granted at all. No detail goes no detail goes uncovered. No little jot and tittle goes uninvestigated. I think that's a good message to send.
Before we switch topics, let's talk about our friends over at Constitution Wealth. I've got a question for you. Are you looking to align your investments with your conservative values and take more control over your investment choices? Many investors don't even realize they can influence company policies such as DEI, CRT, ESG, and more by exercising shareholder proxy voting and by reducing their investments in companies that don't share their conservative values. Constitution Wealth helps clients make informed investment decisions that reflect their principles. Their team of investment professionals are passionate about helping you align with your investments and aligning them with your traditional values. So get ready to learn more about how your investments can better match your principles. And you can do so by visiting constitutionwealth.com/blaze for a free consultation. That's constitutionwealth.com/blaze. That's constitutionwealth.com/blaze. And Constitution Wealth is a registered investment advisor. Registration does not imply a certain level of skill or training. Before considering their services, you should carefully review Constitution Wealth disclosures at constitutionwealth.com to understand all material risks, conflicts of interest, and fees. All investing, remember, involves risk, including the risk of loss. This is a paid endorsement. I'm not a client of the firm. All right. Next segment, I want to get into the other matter you raised, which was the Stargate announcement yesterday. The comments by Larry Ellison over at Oracle, as well as something that occurred that we could not get to with all the inaugural stuff going on. And that's this meeting that took place between Bill Gates and Donald Trump that people are freaking out about. And I want to, I'm going to do my best to look at both of these circumstances through the lens of a biblical worldview. And just to set the scene, guys, I don't know if you saw this story break right as we were getting on the air today. The Trump administration has ordered a blackout at health agencies, CDC, FDA, and NIH. So for the time being, they cannot publish scientific reports, update their websites, issue any health advisories, nothing. That says to me, you are to remain silent until the new sheriffs in town arrive. Dr. Weldon, Marty Makary, Jay Bhattacharya, R.F. Kennedy Jr., and you are not getting out ahead of them. And you permanent bureaucrats there, you're not going to be setting the tone here. You're not running some kind of shadow health agency conglomerate while the approval confirmation process goes on. You're basically you're in hibernation until the cavalry arrives. Thoughts on that really quick, guys?
Amen, as it should be. It's his executive.
Yep.
It's not any more complicated than that. And God, after what Anthony Fauci pulled off on him, if he didn't learn from that mistake, God help him. He's clearly learned on that front.
If you were reasonably just in a lab cooking up the first 48 to 72 hours of a president of the United States that you would want to vote for in the year 2025, again, reasonably cooking him up in a lab, there's really not much difference from what we're seeing right now with Donald Trump. And this is one of them. It's details like this.
And Aaron, great point. The fact that they're down to this level of detail minutia. I understand for us, it's not detail minutia, but we're not running an executive branch with like 300,000 employees and consultants when you look at the NGOs and everything else. To be down to this level of detail, I think it actually kind of harkens back to what we were just talking about, indicates politically, because even though I think theologically and the way that they handled it, I think it actually was a boost to the presidency. But you cannot count on every time you miss a detail that you can turn chicken, caca and feces into chicken salad. All right. That's why I think there's got to be some discipline there, because you just can't roll like that on a consistent basis, especially because if they're down to this level of detail, it clearly indicates that they've done their homework and they're ready to go, which also goes back to the point we made a minute ago, clearly indicates somebody missed a detail they were supposed to notice. All right, so let's get to the other big matters that were in your montage, Aaron, before we get to buy, sell, or hold next hour, and we'll get through as many of your buy, sell, or hold submissions as we can. And then the ones that remain, we'll do in the overtime later today for Blaze TV subscribers at blazetv.com/Deace. Go there to become a subscriber to Blaze TV. If you do that today at blazetv.com/Deace, you'll get a discount as a thank you for signing up, and all kinds of exclusive content made just for you. So thanks to all of you for subscribing. And if you want to join us today, blazetv.com/Deace. So let's start with the Larry Ellison thing, because I actually think that this is actually simpler than the Bill Gates thing. And if you look at, no one rises above their own worldview, guys. And worldview is destiny. The totality of Donald Trump's worldview and how it has been adjusted by what he presided over during COVID and what was done to his administration via COVID, I think is absolutely on display in the full gamut of it. So let's take a sequence of events. Donald Trump makes to, I think, the five most important health, and Surgeon General would be by far the least of those. But that's the weakest appointment he makes. That's the one of the five that gets universally panned by the entire base. But here's the thing, even that person, and she deserves to be universally panned. But what's interesting about, even though she's the weakest of the five, do not forget this, she is still one of the few public health officials in America not employed by Ron DeSantis in Florida, who went on national television saying not to give the COVID jabs to kids. She at least was willing to do that. And she's by far the weakest of his five appointments. All right, so who are the other four? You've got Dr. Dave Weldon, a former member of Congress, renowned pro-life physician. He's going to run the CDC. Dr. Marty Makary from Johns Hopkins, he's going to run the FDA. And Marty was among the first from within the medical establishment to come out, condemn lockdowns. We used a lot of Marty's work the first year pushing back against COVID and the scamdemic on this show. He's been a guest on this show several times, in fact. And then you have Dr. Jay Bhattacharya taking over Francis Collins' new post there at the National Institutes of Health, who, of course, got targeted by Fauci and Collins for helping to lead groups like the Barrington Declaration. Stanford University had a group of dissident doctors and scientists there. Among them were Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, Dr. Scott Atlas, Dr. John Ioannidis, that were among the first from one of the most renowned medical schools in the world, not just America, were among the first to push back on what later became known as Fauciism. And now Dr. Jay Bhattacharya is going to take over the NIH, which means he's going to have more say. Dr. Jay Bhattacharya is going to have more say about grants and funding than almost any public appointee or Trump appointee not working in the Pentagon will. The billions of dollars that go in and out of that agency in funding and grants. And he's going to have the final say on that soon. And then, of course, the guy that's going to preside over all of them as a member of the cabinet, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who has lost his place in his own family, has lost who knows how much wealth, admiration, clout, kinds of things people kill for. Families cut every corner to sustain and pass on as legacies for generation after generation. He lost it all, pushing back on the kinds of things that we've been talking about on our show since March 16, 2020. And he's going to be the one, as head of HHS, presiding over all the other people I just mentioned. So these appointments are made first. After this, we have Trump meeting with Bill Gates, and then Trump doing an announcement with this Stargate program, bringing in Larry Ellison from Oracle, talking about AI, mRNA as individual gene therapies. By the way, did you hear him describe it as that? Funny. I thought, weren't we all getting banned and censored, guys, for calling mRNA gene therapies? I know I was. And now we've got the second or third wealthiest man in the world calling it that. Okay. Because that, by the way, if you do your research on mRNA, that's what Larry Ellison's talking about. Now, it could still be crackpot. It never happened. But just to be as fair as we can, what he's describing is actually what mRNA research was originally hopeful to do, was to be something that could be an individualized therapeutic for people. And Elon Musk has referred to this as well, that there's some promising research to that end. And then so there's that yesterday, which freaked a bunch of people out, and rightfully so, and all the right people were freaked out. But you follow it up there with what we just talked about 10 minutes ago, where the Trump administration's put a moratorium, a complete lockdown blackout, on any further publishing and citations coming out of any of the major health agencies until the new staff, the new hierarchy is in place. If you look at the totality of these events, they match up perfectly with Trump's worldview. First of all, Trump likes teams of rivals. So let's put all these, you know what? Let's put them all together in a room. Ironically, the reason, that's the one thing Trump never did until it was too late when he brought Scott Atlas on late summer of 2020. It was too late then. That's the one thing he never did do, is he should have. How many times, guys, did we scream? We don't even know what's true. I don't know. I'm not an immunologist. But we've got all these people, Dr. Tony Katz at Yale. You've got Dr. Harvey Risch, Yale, the Stanford dissident crew I talked about. These are not, Harvey Risch is the most academically cited physician of his era. Dr. Peter McCullough started not one, not two, but 3 medical journals. Put him in a room. Let's let him fight it out. How many times did we scream that, guys, during the advent of COVID, the ascendancy of the scamdemic? How many times did I do that show?
At least all of them.
Just put him in a room. Yes, just put him in a room and let's see what happens. You know what you're watching right now? That's going to happen. That's what you're going to watch. That's what he's doing. We're going to put them all in a room. And let's see what the truth is. Let's see who's right. Hell, I don't know. That's a very Trumpian reaction. It's perfectly consistent with his worldview. Now, you're welcome to disagree with it, but this is actually making sense. It didn't make sense that he didn't do this 5 years ago. It makes sense that he's doing it now. And you're going to see now, we're going to find out. I have no idea of what Larry Ellison, I think, Todd, you said this could either be Skynet or what did you say, or Starfleet or something, right? Something, it could go from one extreme to the other. Who the hell knows how it will go? You know what? Here's the thing. Did you guys know life expectancy in America rose 55% from 1900 to 1980? 55% from 1900 to 1980. And there were 2 primary reasons why. Innovation in civil engineering, indoor plumbing, electricity, gas. So sanitation, things are more hygienic. That's number 1. Number 2, innovation in medicine. I had such severe asthma. I would get, I would get admitted to hospitals for a week. I could not breathe on my own when I was a little kid. And if it weren't for innovations like nebulizers, I'm just telling you, you weren't going to rub some essential oils on it. Dude, we've got the whole pantheon of essential oils at our house. Homeopathy and all that kind of stuff has a place. We do some of that still. All right, but you're not going to run copper bracelets on a tumor on your breast. There needs to be some innovation. Innovation in and of itself isn't bad. We can't act like it's witchcraft. So we need a plumb line. We need a metric. I've got an idea. I have an idea. How about if we take 4 people whose reputations are pretty sound and recognized and secured in these particular debates and fields, and put them in the not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 most important oversight positions and organizations to oversee such initiatives like what Larry Ellison is talking about at Oracle. And act like we're a representative republic. They are our representatives. They're our proxies. Put them in those positions. Hey, you guys are the umpires. Time to start calling balls and strikes. What's real? What's legit? The answer is not the answer is not the abandonment of innovation. The answer is the reintroduction of morality. That's the answer. But people who have demonstrated they're willing to risk something for convictions, for health, for righteousness, for what's best for people, All four of those people have. Marty McCarry. And dude, Marty McCarry didn't go to Johns Hopkins, guys, so he could do the Steve Deace show. That's not why you do Johns Hopkins. You do Johns Hopkins so that you're going to be the medical analyst for NBC News. But he told the truth about lockdown, so he's got to do the Steve Deace show now. RFK Jr., when you're born a Kennedy, you're thinking, I won the lucky sperm club, man. I'm born on third, credited with a triple. Okay? I mean, he's hanging out with us now because he got excommunicated from the Klan. They did everything to Jay Bhattacharya but rob him of tenure, and they would have done that if they could have legally gotten away with it. So my point is, these people have literally bled for this. They have sacrificed more than just an anonymous post or two on Twitter with their angst. They've got real demonstrated skin in the game, and now they've got real power. Who gave them that power? Trump. How did Trump get that power? From you. This is how a representative republic works. We've been complaining, lamenting, captured institutions. They're uncaptured. These guys now have to do their jobs. And your job now, Jay Bhattacharya, is, I'm not signing over that grant because I think that the early data on Larry's fantastical rantings just isn't there. Or, I know it sounds nuts, but you know what? They told Semmelweis he was nuts too, and he said we need to start washing hands more, and look how that turned out. So the data's pretty good. Stroke the check. That's how this works. It's how it was supposed to work. Now, it's not how it has worked for only God knows how long. But to me, this system is actually working. Doesn't mean it's going to keep working. Doesn't mean we don't have to hold it accountable. Doesn't mean we have to watch it. Doesn't mean we shouldn't be skeptical. And they did this to us by how many times they lied to us, abused us. I met multiple people last night that took the jab, just at Real Men. Multiple people, 2 or 3 guys came up to me last night, took the jab, and I shouldn't have, and had an adverse event. One of them, a doctor. And he goes, after, you know what, I found your show, and I'm like, I'm never going back there again. So, to me, you're watching the full expanse of Trump's worldview. He's acting on it. And this is how a republic is supposed to work. All right, you elected Donald Trump to represent your interests. He believes he's acting on them. If you don't like how he's acting on them, you don't have to, well, you can't vote for him again anyway, even if you wanted to. And then he is now appointing people to act on his interests. His interests appear to be get the maximum amount of innovation and economic growth out of these state-of-the-art tech companies as possible, but with real oversight from people who actually know what's going on and have demonstrated they've got the balls to say no if something needs to be said no to. So let's just let it play itself out for a bit and see what happens. Which brings me to Bill Gates. Now, you know, there was a guy named Saul once, really zealous Jew, and he encountered this dude named Steve, not me, and could not believe this dude named Steve was from this heretical sect of people who thought this carpenter from Nazareth, where nothing good comes from, that this carpenter from Nazareth was the long-awaited Messiah, and dared to lecture the elders of Israel to recognize this. And so Saul was like, tell you what, guys, this dude needs to be put down and stoned. And if you guys, I'll even hold your tunics, man. So you can put some extra torque on them rocks. And that's what they did at Saul's urging, is they put Steve down like a rabid dog. But then, 10 minutes later, Saul's like, hey, man, my name's Paul now. I kind of blew that one. My bust. That carpenter from Nazareth, that kind of is the Messiah. And this is where it even gets weirder. I mean, I didn't see this coming either. He's got some Christology and stuff I've got to educate you all on, that he wants me to be the one to drop the knowledge on you. And yeah, I know. Not the way I saw this plot didn't go the way I thought it was going to unroll either. Did they immediately say, well, Paul, Bishop of Jerusalem? No, they didn't do that. It took some time to earn their character, their respect, their integrity, their trust. But you know, I'm old enough to remember 25 years ago when Rush Limbaugh was doing shows defending Bill Gates from the Bill Clinton Justice Department, back when Trump was writing checks to Planned Parenthood and Al Sharpton. Now Trump is the guy getting rid of affirmative action and DEI and appointing the judges that overturned Roe v. Wade. I've got here in front of me today a Dell laptop. It operates on what? Windows. Where did Windows come from? Bill Gates. Windows has been a tremendous contribution to humanity. Now, is Bill Gates mad as a hatter? It appears, at least the last few years, the answer to that is yes. Is Bill Gates the Antichrist? Might be. Okay. Could Trump get burned trusting Bill Gates? I mean, there's a bear crap in the woods. Or is it possible that Bill Gates is just another really smart, sinful guy with some really high highs and some really low lows, and with a modicum of restraint and accountability can contribute great things to humanity? Well, I've got a machine right here in front of me that seems to indicate there's at least some evidence to that. And that machine's in front of a whole lot of you today, too. So again, let's see what happens. And if Trump gets burned, if the scorpion stings him again, then you call him out. But I understand why we are instant reactionary of the last 5 years. What I'm trying to do, number one, is help people be more discerning. Number two, we've seen enough of early cardiac arrest and heart failure and myo and pericarditis the last few years. We don't need it chronically induced now, because people are just going to lose their damn minds 48 hours into this thing. Let's find out. Let's see. And if, oh no, we suck again happens, plenty of time to lose your bowels then. Gentlemen, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, there's a lot there. I would simply say, in terms of the messaging on AI and mRNA, I don't think it's any secret, once Elon's in the mix, that, AI moving forward in some kind of direction was going to be part of it. But this was a mistake along the lines of walking into that cathedral and apparently not knowing what you're going to get. Like, people have been talking about curing cancer for a long time. You can talk about identifying things and developing medicines. It's just boneheaded in the extreme to be combining AI and mRNA conversation together when your constituents have set a very high bar on what they expect. This was dumb. Listen, he's still the weather. There's been a lot of sunny days. This was one of those weird storms. This is one of those weird storms. It's sunny everywhere, and it's following you around for no damn reason. But here's the thing. I wouldn't be surprised, while we talked about Anthony putting a kibosh on all communications out of CDC, etc. That's a smart play to do no matter what. I wouldn't be surprised in the least if that's damage control in relation to all the grief they're getting for what they just did on this communication. It was terrible.
These tech CEOs might just be kissing the ring, recognizing that Trump actually has real power. He might be doing that. It might be Larry Ellison. He was talking about recently, he wants to have AI make citizens be on their best behavior, create Minority Report. Be vigilant, have your heads on a swivel. That's all. Just watch it play out.
Great Minority Report reference as well. Buy, sell, or hold is next. All right, we're back here with Hour 2, live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcasts with Todd Erzin and Aaron McIntyre. I'm Steve Deace. One more day here in Scottsdale, Arizona. I've got a travel day tomorrow. You will get a new episode, nevertheless. It'll be an evergreen episode, a full 2-hour edition of Theology Thursday coming your way tomorrow as a special evergreen edition. So hopefully you're looking forward to that. We're looking forward to getting your reaction to that. We taped that one last year, I think it was. And I think it's well-timed, especially after what took place at the National Cathedral yesterday. All right. You can let us know what you think about what we think via the stevedeace.com inbox. Just email us, steve@stevedeace.com, steve@stevedeace.com, DEACE. Like us on Facebook, MeWe, and Gab. You can also follow me at Steve Deace Show on X, Instagram, TikTok. And then finally, if you wouldn't mind, if you love the podcast, make sure to subscribe or hit follow on iTunes. That makes sure every time we drop one of these new episodes, it drops right there in your podcast feed every single time. Thank you if you've done that for us. And thank you as well if you've left us a 5-star review at your podcast platform of choice. And thank you in advance if you're going to do that for us today. We would greatly appreciate, and we appreciate each and every one, as we appreciate the ministry of our friends at Voice of Judah Israel. You know, the Apostle Paul declared, "I am not ashamed of the gospel, for it is the power of God for salvation to everyone who believes. Well, today, there's over 6.5 million Jewish people in Israel, and really a total of over 9 million Israelis who do not know the gospel of the Messiah, Yeshua. Voice of Judah Israel works in the heartland of Israel as a messianic ministry, sharing the powerful message of the gospel, the greatest story ever told. They are working hard to bring the gospel home to the place that gave it to the rest of the world. And they do this through preaching and teaching, discipling, also through community outreach, being the hands and feet of the gospel to serve the material needs of the Israeli people as well. So they're looking for help because the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Israel is one of the youngest median age industrialized nations in the world, also one of the least religious as well. So the opportunity is now there. If you want to take advantage of it and support this outstanding messianic ministry, go to vojisrael.org/Steve. That's VOJ for Voice of Judah. vojisrael.org/Steve. Again, that's Voice of Judah Israel at vojisrael.org/Steve. And with that, let's get to it. It is time for some buy, sell, or hold. You guys out there in the audience, you have submitted the propositions we're about to consider. That would be Todd Erzin and myself, Steve Deace. We will decide, Aaron will decide, first of all, the propositions we're going to decide upon. And then we're going to decide, are we buying that? Are we selling that? And you know what? I am in a great mood because, Todd, you're right. Trump is like the weather, but there have been a lot of sunny days recently. And it's been sunny every day this week in Scottsdale, Arizona. I'm in a good mood. Got the battery recharged last night with some good church over at Real Men. Got my emotional battery recharged in the depths of winter by seeing the sun for 5 consecutive days. So because of that, no penalty today for the hold. I'm feeling magnanimous. I mean, don't get me wrong. You will still feel and experience the internal shame and anguish from betraying your gender and punking out. All right. But that'll be a you problem. I have nothing external to offer. I'm in a good place right now. So hold away. Just be laughed at when you do. Todd, you ready to go?
Yeah. And by the way, just stay down there. Don't come back.
All right, let's fire it up. Go ahead.
We'll begin with John Endicott, who says that most normal non-message board Michigan and Ohio State fans actually respect one another for having won the last 2 national championships. Buy, sell, or hold?
I will buy this to some degree, particularly if you are 40 or over. And, you know, what I mentioned, the doctor that came up to me after Real Men last night talking about he listened to his industry, took the shot, and had an adverse event. And, you know, our show really helped him get through all of that. Well, he's an Ohio State grad. And he's about our age, Todd. And we got to talking. And, yeah, I mean, we want to, you know, cave in each other's skulls the 3rd or 4th, Saturday of November, depending on if the game's before or after Thanksgiving. But, you know, we just remembered a different era where it was extremely fierce, but it was very respectful. And Michigan and Ohio State players would go on to the NFL, often play together and become friends. Bo and Woody, I mean, Bo was basically Woody's surrogate son. I talked about how early in my sports talk radio career, I got to know Earl Bruce, the old Ohio State coach, very well. We hung out a lot. I mean, we've traveled together. We went to Louisiana together on a road trip. We'd have lunch together. He'd tell me all kinds of stories about Bo and Woody. So I do think, and I think this is probably true in general, not just of this rivalry, but of most sports-related things in general since the advent of social media. Aaron maybe can speak to this from an Iowa State perspective, but I think the advent of social media, and the younger you are, the more you're going to be immersed instantly in that, has made things in sports in general more disrespectful than they used to be.
Yeah, I'm selling. When I say these words, I mean them exactly. Nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing about the current state of college football makes you smarter or more ethical. Period.
Okay, moving on, going to Bruce Logan, who says, considering all of the negativity surrounding Ohio State's fourth consecutive loss to Michigan, this playoff run might be the most impressive four-game stretch in college football history. Buy, sell, or hold?
I think I have to buy because it's the only four-game stretch in college football playoff history. It's the only one. It's the first time we've had a four-game stretch in college football history. So by extension, therefore, it has to be the best one.
Is this the golden?
Todd, your thoughts?
This can't be the golden age Trump was talking about. This is what we're talking about. My God.
The weather just got cloudy for Todd real quick.
Have you ever kissed a girl? Come on. It's, you guys.
Oh, that reminds me, since you're already in a mood, I was going to wait and drop this on you Friday when I got back so I could be in person and do it. But since you're already in a mood, Todd, I want you to know I had a gentleman come up to me after the talk last night. He goes, I just have one question for Todd. I said, yeah, shoot. He goes, I just need to know who's he got for the GOP nomination in 2028.
Yeah.
And we both just broke out laughing, okay, because he meant it to be a troll. Yeah, so go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I think torture to Todd would be like, what's that movie where they have the eyes peeled open? What is that?
Clockwork Orange.
Clockwork Orange. I was going to say Agent Orange. No, Clockwork Orange. And it's just the words, who will win the next college football national championship, and then who will be the next GOP nominee in the next presidential, just over and over and over again.
and followed by the flashing pumpkin spice, flashing intermittently in between those two questions. Yes.
Scott Goldenzoff says the Swedish chef could take Beaker in a fight.
I'll buy that. First of all, he's got weapons. Got knives, got cutlery. I'm not messing with the Swedish chef. I'll buy that. You bet. Dude comes armed. And he's trained in those armaments. He's a sergeant in arms, in fact. I'll buy that.
Sure. Bye.
Moving on, Joel GJ says Trump will be Liz Trussed by the big banks and huge corporations, raising prices on most in all goods and services under the guise of Trump tariffs. Is that what happened to Liz Truss?
I'm going to sell. Here's why. I think much of this is about leverage, like Todd has been pointing out, really for what now, 8 years on this topic when it's been discussed where Trump is concerned. I think also the discussion, who knows, anonymous sources are, saying Trump is discussing eliminating the federal income tax. That could be an offset, right? Because Trump is right. I mean, we funded our country prior to the early 20th century with tariffs and duties and things of that nature before we had a federal income tax. And so what would be the offset? Because countries will counter tariff us. They will. They have to. They won't have a choice unless they really do want to become the United States of Canada, the 51st state. And so what's the offset there? Something like the elimination of the federal income tax would be a potential offset there. But again, I think you have to understand when you're dealing with Donald Trump, in many cases, these speculations mean something until they don't. And they don't mean anything until they do. Everything is a negotiation. All right. And that's actually when he's at his best. As Todd has pointed out, when he's at his worst is when he kind of abandons art of the deal. That's actually when he's at his worst. When he's at his best is when he is consistent with that art of the deal worldview, and everything is an ongoing negotiation, and leverage can be applied and leverage can be taken away. And it's probably best, again, not to get your panties in a wad one way or the other. I will say this for the sake of this of the submission, however, that absolutely can happen without serious reduction in taxation or elimination of things like the federal income tax as an offset to counter the increased price of goods when other countries counter our tariffs. That is true. That could happen. So I'll buy.
Hey, Scott Glenn, hunt for Red October. The hard part about playing chicken is knowing when to flinch.
Right on.
That's what this has always been about. So since Steve, you're over there and raining sunshine on us, I'll hold, because that's what this is. None of this, by the way, is like there's like theologically the good and bad. There are so many shades of gray in this kind of thing. Correct. And I am willing to see this play out, because let's say the old Trump is spitting in the face of the old rules that supposedly we all have to play. So what? NAFTA was our God? That was the best thing that ever happened to us? No. But we were sold on that this is the new way. The old backwards mothballs way is tariffs. All of that's stupid. I'm not playing any of those games. I'm going to wait and see how my life gets better economically. Economia, from the Greek, the household. That's what I care about.
Yeah, that's a great answer, too. Amen.
Next up, Catholic Knighthood says all churches should voluntarily give up our tax-exempt statuses. It makes us cowards anyway, afraid to speak lest we lose our tax status. Making the churches have skin in the game would be good for us.
Sal, no. That's the wrong take on it. Listen, a guy who's flaked out like David French and Megan Basham brought him up recently and pointed that out. But he wrote a great book. I've mentioned it many times on the show. Marvin Olansky's The Tragedy of American Compassion. The reason it's tax exempt is because it's supposed to be the work that so much of government has taken over. So it would have the money and the resources to do that. And the church gave up that in the name of efficiencies and the road to hell paved with good intentions, like it's given up so much. And now we have the witch at the front door of the National Cathedral. No, we have to go back.
Agree with every word, so I will sell as well. But I would have bought if it was worded, churches should be willing to give up or have it taken away, meaning willing to sacrifice it for prophetic truth. That I would agree with, okay? Because then tax exempt status becomes an idol, which is what it's become. And I think that's what the submitter is alluding to. It has become an idol to many churches. I agree with that. But in and of itself, it is not idolatry, because the intent of it is every word of what Todd just said. So it's not an idol unto itself. It was turned into one by the fecklessness of the church. Therefore, the cure is the fecklessness of the church, not the getting rid of a device which was originally created in order to unleash it.
Next, we go to Chad Stanford. John Fetterman, wearing his hoodie and shorts to the inauguration, is trolling all of us. He knows exactly what he's doing and is sitting back laughing at us about the way we react.
So,
I think this is branding, actually, at this point. I think he's branding. I do. I don't think this is the guy who was a walking VAERS incident 3 years ago, who was, as cognitively impaired, albeit for different reasons, as Joe Biden, and can't utter a sentence in a Pennsylvania Senate debate. Okay. I think now this guy's proven to be clever, discerning, and kind of ballsy. So I think this is all branding at this point, and one man's branding is another man's troll. So, they can be euphemisms for one another in this day and age. If you like it, it's branding. If you don't like it, it's a troll, right? So I think they're kind of on the same taxonomy line of terms, even if they're interpreted differently. So I'll buy, because I think it's all branding at this point.
I'll sell. I just think that's all overthinking it. I think this guy has a degree of, depression, mental illness, and this makes him comfortable. And this is basically his medicine, his crutch. And it's not the worst thing of the world. I mean, I don't think listen, it's not like, the lack of decorum or dignity, and it's Congress. Good grief.
He's dressed as seriously as Congress
I know.
is.
I totally agree with that.
That's exactly why I think it's branding, Aaron, is exactly what you just said.
That's why I can't make up my...
I think it's branding.
You bought, you sold, I'm holding. Because I can't make up my mind one way or another. For all the reasons you just mentioned, both of you. Next, Chit Bat Crazy. We need Department of Transportation Secretary in place as soon as possible. Also, we need an FAA administration pick ready to go. Airlines are literally in an accident waiting to happen. I have a question for you before you answer this. Is it just me, but over the last 2 years, have there been more incidents and accidents related to commercial aviation than the past 5 to 10 years? Or am I just imagining that? Are they more reported right now for whatever reason?
the answer to your question is yes, and I don't know which it is, but that certainly feels like the perception. I mean, I had a guy come up to me last night who's a Southwest pilot, and he told me the backstory of how they ended up beating the vaccine mandate, and Southwest Airlines was the one that was essentially the avant-garde there, and it wasn't because they wanted to be. They told all their pilots, you'll get it by Christmas of 21 or you're gone. The problem was 40% or some massive number of their pilots refused to get it. And it was a number irreplaceable. In other words, they made themselves ungovernable. And when other pilots and other airlines saw that happen at Southwest, they kind of followed suit. Now, what does that have to do with this question? Well, it's indicative of how deeply embedded the previous regime's policies and regulations were in the aviation industry. I mean, they were literally in symbiotic relationship at that point. So what are some of those policies? ESG, DEI, a lack of merit-based hiring. I absolutely think that could be the case. You bet. So I'll buy for sure.
I'll buy for sure, but it doesn't matter whether it's these particular offices, any office. We need them in. There's not an office that the Biden administration did not utterly turn into some degree of whorehouse. Correct. Yeah. All of
Correct.
It. Fast.
100%. You bet. Basically, the last regime was the public policy equivalent of Bangkok hookers. That's exactly what it was.
Yes.
Next, we go to Aaron Riali. While often viewed as a plain and uninspiring meat, chicken can be an inspiring meal when made correctly, especially rotisserie or smoked. 100%, 200%, 300%, buy, 1,000 times buy. Chicken doesn't have to be this way. It doesn't have to be dry. It doesn't have to be, I wasn't even planning on going on this rant. It doesn't have to be tough. It can be delicious.
I love chicken.
Don't settle for dry, tough chicken. That's my message.
One of the best lean protein sources God ever made. I'm all in on it. I got to tell you, we went to Medieval Times for dinner. Amy and I did the other night down here in Scottsdale. And it's where they put you in the medieval times setting, and you're like at the king and queen's court, and there's jousting and games, and there's no silverware. All right. So, I mean, they try to make it as, time period as we can in the 21st century. And the meal were these massive pieces of baked chicken. And guys, I'm telling you, I can't believe I'm saying this. It was some of the best baked chicken I've had in my entire life. I could not believe how good it was. I could not believe how flavorful it was, how moist it was. It was absolutely terrific. So to me, turkey is a much harder thing in terms of a dry, lean protein source, a much harder thing to get right than chicken. Chicken, to me, that's just good living. I didn't even know this was a debate. I love chicken. You bet. 100%. Bye.
Next, we go to James Blanchard, who says in his last act of ultimate four-dimensional chess, Donald Trump will preemptively pardon every past, current, and future voter of the Republican Party, ensuring the future of the GOP for all eternity.
Listen, I said months ago, when it was clear they were going to pardon Hunter Biden despite the lie, that Trump should just preemptively pardon every donor, every member of the administration, everybody. Just preemptively pardon them all from any lawfare. So this is the game. These are the rules of the game now. This is what it means to be in a cold civil war. All right. It's a zero-sum game now. So I think this is meant to be snotty, but I actually endorse it as a principle. So I will buy.
I'd rather go in the other direction and just, you thought you were playing fun games. Now go after all the people. They can't pardon everybody. Go get somebody. Make everybody. I mean, they're all on the hook. They're all on the hook.
Why not both? Why not both, Tony Stark? Just do both. Just do both.
Next up, G. Roberts, alien in my own nation, says Steve Baker will shoplift from Walmart by Saturday. He can't handle not being in the gangsta life.
No.
I hope Steve is watching and saw that. I hope he's watching and saw that.
I'm selling that guy. That guy's just walking the earth in peace now.
Yeah. Well, I think he actually did. I think he's not getting a pardon now. Didn't Steve say that that the Trump DOJ just came in and dismissed his entire case with prejudice?
Yeah, something like that.
Which means which with prejudice, for those who don't know, it means it can't be brought back again in another context. It's dead. That's what it means. Okay. So I think I saw that. If I misspoke, Steve, feel free to text me, call me, smack me upside the head. But that would essentially mean it never happened. It was completely expunged. It just, from a legal standpoint, it just never occurred. That's what it would mean. So either way, Todd is correct. He's in a good place right now. And I have a hard time believing a guy that has been as disciplined as Steve Baker has been through all this is now going to blow this on, ganking some socks or, vitamin D caplets from Walmart. I don't think that's coming. So I'm going to sell. I do like the submission, though. I thought it was a good piece of content.
Next, we go to Heather. Buy, sell, or hold this meme. This is a heck of a picture. This is President Trump, Vice President Vance, their two wives waving goodbye to Marine One as it departs with former President Biden and Dr. Jill Biden for one final time, with the text, "Unburdened by what has been."
I'm feeling really unburdened, man. Okay, I'm feeling really unburdened. So I'll buy. You bet. I like it.
I get the sentiment, and I think the picture is like, it might be the picture of the year, quite frankly, when we come back to it. I'm going to sell only in that we are still burdened. We have so much work to do. By design, they tried to destroy this country. So I'm keeping it real. That's all.
Next, we go to Brad Novak. Aaron would love for Todd to just once read the buy, sell, or hold submission so he could play along and really let his 100% Christian worldview shine. You know what? I hadn't even considered this, but I'm a buy on this one. This would be fun sometime. Todd chooses the submissions.
Could you know, dude, Aaron, if Todd chose the submissions, we would get options like your favorite form of suffering. Which rack do you like to be placed upon? If the choice was between drawing and quartering or waterboarding, how would you best like to spend your Saturday afternoon? I mean, those are...
Yeah, wouldn't it be sonnets about chicken like Aaron Reale gave us?
There must be some in between Todd's ode to suffering and Aaron's homilies for chicken. There must be some serious nexus between those 2 points. But I'll sell. I don't think the show could survive Todd doing the selections.
Buy, sell, or hold. You are too comfortable if you don't order your chicken with a side of nails.
Yes, that's a Todd Erzin submission. In fact,
we're getting somewhere.
Todd's burner account submitted that. Actually, yes, that's the very first submission. Todd's burner account. Do you like a side of nails or Phillips screwdrivers with your chicken? Yes.
Seth says Greenland and the Panama Canal will be in U.S. control by the end of the year.
So
I would love this to be true. Yeah. I would love it to be true. I would. So I have no idea. This thing with Greenland in particular has gone way further than the initial troll it was thought to be at first. Trump using his inaugural address to just flat out say we're taking back the Panama Canal. It's probably a sell, but it's just because I would like it to be true, and it's gone further than I think anybody thought even a month ago already, and it's only January 22nd. I'll buy. Still a lot of year left.
Mm-hmm.
But Todd's probably right.
If you would have said either or, I would have bought for the same reason Steve did.
That's true. That's true too. Yeah, I think there's more likely. I think it's more likely you focus on one and get one done first, right? But okay.
Bill says, we will get UAP info with bodies before Fauci has to lawyer up.
I'm going to buy, but maybe not. I'm going to buy, but maybe not for the reasons that this submission probably implies, because I just really think a real demonic level of psyop is ongoing with this. And they've come too far, whoever that they are, to abandon it. So I don't think that's that far off, actually. I don't. So there's a reason why I'm asking pastors like Ben Garrett and Brian Sauvé about this on the show yesterday. I anticipate that that this has to go to the next level. It has to. It can't just be left where it's at. It hasn't captured the public imagination as much as they hoped. And the fact that they keep reinventing this indicates that they want it to capture the public attention.
Did you see the UAP leaker on 4chan on Monday, Steve? Apparently, a joint venture between United Nations and European countries and the United States found this cave in Antarctica. And is it the Queen Victoria mountain range or whatever it is? And there was an egg craft inside this cave, and then a being that was like 8 feet tall, and he's living in Europe now, and he can communicate telepathically. And there was post after post after post after post about this. And I'm like, wow, this is some really interesting demonic fan fiction. And then it got really lazy because like 10 posts in, it was like, yeah, this being told us that your planet can be saved if you stop polluting it.
See, this is. Again, when a guy like Stephen Greer is getting platformed by Newsmax, that's one of the largest platforms on the American right. This is his religion, and he's getting platformed for that religion. They're not just going to let this go. No. Todd, go ahead. What's your answer?
There are no bodies.
Okay.
Darren Ray says every man should ask himself, would younger me have current me as his role model?
Oh, I love that. I'll buy. That's great. I love that.
And prepare for disappointment.
Wow.
You know what? You need to go online after the show today, Todd, and buy up every URL, social media branding with that slogan. That when you get your own show, that's what it will be called. Prepare for disappointment with Todd Erzin. Prepare for disappointment with Todd Erzin. Right there. Yes.
Agreed.
Okay, I'm going to have to do this really fast. Last one. Sheepdog Sean, Todd's new rap single. I'm T to the O to the double D. You way too comfy and hating on me. I may love Mary, but your girl's chins are hairy. I've been to the clink. Lindsey Graham's a twink. Economy is my word. Marvel's for nerds. We have to go back. Sports bros are whack. Y'all can go choke on my tweets.
That's all I'm saying. That's it. It's not complicated.
That's it. That's all I got. He just drops the mic.
Yeah.
Yes. I love it. That's fantastic. I'll buy. Great way to end it. I know you've got more, Aaron. We'll get to those in the overtime today for Blaze TV subscribers at blazetv.com/Deace. Again, head over there to make sure you don't miss it today, and don't miss all of the exclusive content we produce all the time here at The Blaze at blazetv.com/Deace. That's blazetv.com/Deace. When we come back, we'll be joined again by the prophet of woe and lamentation. Daniel Horowitz is next. Stay tuned. Let me tell you one of the reasons why, as much as I've loved being here in Arizona this week, got myself some sun, and I wish I could take it with me, but can't wait to get back home, see everybody again that I care about. Also, get back to my Miracle Made sheets, man, and I'm not even lying. They are just absolutely terrific. Way better than when I'm sleeping on in the hotel suite that we rented for this week. They're fantastic. Temperature regulating is the key there. All right. They're luxuriously comfortable, but there's lots of sheets that are luxuriously comfortable. But can you combine that luxury, that comfortability with the practical result of helping your temperature be regulated all night long for the best sleep? I have not found any sheets that do that the way that Miracle Made does. So if you want to try them today, trust me, you do. They're absolutely fantastic, and they help with thermal regulation all year long. Let me just give you one example. Arizona, right now, it's like fall back home. So it's 65 during the day. Great. At night, though, the lows get down to like 35 degrees. So we're constantly, should we turn the heat on? We've been struggling to get warm enough or cold enough in our room when we go to bed at night. That's just not a problem we have anymore year round with our Miracle Made sheets. So upgrade your sleep with Miracle Made right now. Go to trymiracle.com/Deace. TryMiracle.com/Deace. Use the code Deace to claim your free 3-piece towel set and save over 40% off. Again, that's TryMiracle.com/Deace to treat yourself. Thank you, Miracle Made, for helping make this episode possible and making these great sheets. TryMiracle.com/Deace. Use the code Deace for the big discount at TryMiracle.com/Deace, code Deace. All right, let's bring him in, the weekly prophet of woe and lamentation, Daniel Horowitz. Good to see you again, my friend. And as we're now into the first couple days of the Trump presidency, we've talked a lot about the worldview and meta aspects of what we've seen here the first 2 days. I want you, because you're the policy guy around here at the shop, so I want you to delve into the execution, right? So let's start with the executive orders, particularly the ones on immigration and their execution and in terms of what they hope to accomplish. Give us your analysis and breakdown there of the marker and the reasonable expectations of those markers that the Trump administration put down with those initial EOs.
Daniel, I think you might be muted.
Yeah, I'm not hearing Daniel. That's right. Thank you.
Alrighty, here we go.
Again.
That's better.
Go ahead. There we go.
Okay, so obviously when we go back to the first Trump administration, there's two things you want to improve upon: execution and ideology. So on the first part, you saw that right away. They were clearly planned for this. They organized. They had the personnel in place, and they were able to implement these orders. Again, they're orders, then obviously not regulatory changes yet, but they're steering towards that with indulging the court precedents that we have. So I love the way they expressed the presidential authority, cited Trump v. Hawaii when talking about vetting and potentially coming up with countries that need to be locked out from certain categories of visas. The birthright thing, that was one area, it was an overperformance from what I expected. I actually laid down a marker. I was like, you probably want to wait off a few months with that to put it in the Federal Register, but they chose to do it right away. And again, it was expressed perfectly prospectively. One parent has to be an LPR, basically empowered the right agencies. So you could tell that there was attention to detail. And you had the A-team writing this to put your best foot forward legally. Refugees was a big one, too. Refugees were suspended for 90 days. And then the reconstitution of it hinted at allowing states again to block it, where actually states would probably have to opt in. That's a big one that I think some people missed. Refugee resettlement is one of the biggest tools for, let's just say, turning America into Europe and all the lovely accoutrements that come with it. So
you've got some data on that, by the way. Can you share some just some of the baseline data you have on that with our audience? They need to hear some of that data.
Yeah, and that's why, to the point, this data is why I'm so focused on this, because I really think this is both some of the most vital things we got to get a handle on and also the easiest things for Trump to do with the mandate. It's not a budget. It's not economic domestic programs. It's just, you just shut it off. Like, you just don't let in more of it. And he has all the authority, and it's been adjudicated already. So in his first term, like by the time we got off running, it was 2019 with that stuff. Now you have that adjudicated. So here's the imperative. I mean, look, Steve, Trump said that, what was this? December 7th, 2015, we're going to cut off Muslim immigration until we know what the hell is going on. Paraphrasing what he said. 6 months before that, I wrote an article. I was doing a series on it at the time. So 6 months prior, I wrote an article at The Blaze, and I said, look, there's something not right in what I'm noticing. More and more, everywhere you go, you saw these Islamists. These rallies were getting bigger and bigger at the time. This is long ago. I said, wait a minute. We were attacked on 9/11. By then, we had lost thousands of people in the Middle East, rebuilding and refereeing Sunni Shia civil wars. I was like, I bet we're letting more of these people in. And I looked and I found we were doubling our immigration from these countries. And I wrote a piece saying that from 2001 to 2013, we let in 1.6 million people from 43 predominantly Muslim countries. Now, before I get the autistic data people on that missed the forest from the trees, You can't obviously come up with a number of the exact number of census of Islam coming in, but you could look at the countries that are almost all Muslim majority. And then there's one I had there that, yes, is 52% Nigeria, but then there's other countries that are minority that I included nothing from. So I think that's a pretty reasonable number. Any likelihood that it's a little bit less is weighed out by a likelihood that it's a little bit more. So that's a hell of a lot of people. And it was double the rate. It was about 125,000 a year, and that's green cards, not including roughly 100,000 at least foreign students from these countries, and I haven't counted guest workers. Okay, so I figured let's revisit that. Again, 9 years later, Trump arose to power, prominence, very much on this issue. Like, we're losing this country. Broadly, many aspects of immigration, but that was one of them. And I would argue that's probably the gravest one, because the consequences of a lack of assimilation for others are cultural or socioeconomic. The consequences of that is, well, Europe. We know that. So anyway, 9 years later, where are we? And I broke down the numbers, and it went up to 170,000 from those countries in 2023. So for a 10-year period, since 2014 to 2023, it was 1.45 million, a pace that is much quicker. And by the way, it was only lowered by 2.5 years of COVID, sort of diminished a lot of our intake across the board. So
yeah, when we found out you could actually close the border, you mean? That's when we found out it was actually illegal to close the border.
Yeah, it was actually illegal, to weigh down the people. But 170,000 a year, just green cards, probably 100,000, 120,000 foreign students. Let me tell you this. So that's 3 million admissions at a permanent level since 9/11. From what I can see, Great Britain only has 3.8 million to begin with. Now, it's a higher percentage there, and in Europe, Belgium has 1 million, higher percentage, but the numbers do matter. And, we're seeing this now. What you saw on the college campuses, what you see now, by the way, every anti-Trump rally has a Palestinian flag in it. You see the Hamas flags, the Hezbollah flags. It's so ubiquitous among them that the random, look, Trump wants to give some sort of, place for every religion at his inauguration, has Catholic priests, Protestant pastors, a Jewish rabbi. All right, let's invite a Muslim. Happens to be a Hezbollah guy from Dearborn. So, thankfully people protested and they chucked him and they didn't fill his place, which was good. But that's how ubiquitous it is. There's no middle ground here, Steve. They could call me names all they want. What are you going to do with that? What is the plan to deal with that?
Just look at your data. Look at the 170,000. Let's say 99% of them are dissident Christians fleeing these Muslim countries. Okay, let's say that's 99%, and only 1% of them are jihadists. That's 170 people, Daniel. That's more than 8 times the amount of people it took to pull off 9/11. More than 8 times. So yeah, I mean, what you're talking about matters tremendously. It's literally a life or death dilemma, is what you're articulating.
And this is the thing. A lot of people, and I'm sure you saw vivid images in Gaza over the weekend with the prisoner exchange, and then all the stuff they were chanting, and the Hamas dudes had to protect the hostages from the civilians. That's what you're letting in. Is every last person like that? No, but again, when you're doing several million, that's a heck of a lot of. And to speak to your point about percentages, we don't have numbers across the board. But again, a lot of these countries are 100% Muslim, but we do have for refugees. So the State Department has buried it under Biden, but we found it again. They actually, for the refugee category, they do post numbers. And from Afghanistan, it's been about 100% Muslim. From Syria, we talk about a lot of persecuted Christians there. It's been 98.6% Muslim under Biden.
Man.
So that answers your question.
Based on the rollout and the execution of the rollout of the policy agenda to start with. What gives you the most confidence? And then if you got alone with the president, what would you say? Hey, man, you got to shore that thing up. That dog's probably not going to hunt.
So obviously, with any executive order, here's the problem you're going to face. There's an inverse relationship with impact and the courts. So in other words, the less impactful, the more likely it will survive the courts. The more impactful, the more likely they'll screw with you. So it's those ones. Obviously, the number one thing really is the birthright citizenship thing. And that's what I've been busy with. I want to be confident that they have gathered the best scholars on this, that have unearthed every argument, including arguments I have found that I haven't seen others put forward. I'm trying to get out there.
I had my top legal little birdie is telling me he doesn't even think Clarence Thomas is for getting rid of birthright citizenship whole cloth, as it's known. You agree or disagree
I disagree with that? I know who you're talking about, and I love the guy to death, but I disagree with that characterization because Thomas's concurrence on Trump v. Hawaii actually gives me hope, but it's academic. That's not the point. You don't have 5. You don't have 5 right now. So you get one shot at this. One shot. Now, here's the deal. You and I both, here's what I would tell Trump. You and I both know that this is not about intellectual arguments. You know, these guys take a dump like everyone else, and they're at least as political as the political branches are, at least as it relates to political issues. You know, you'll have cases where the law and legal theory works, individual civil criminal cases, it works. Not when it's political, like we saw at January 6th. That wasn't a criminal case anymore. That was a political issue. So our entire law fell apart. They respond to politics. If we come like a thief in the night and we're like, man, just throw it out there just to check the box, I don't think it will stand, they'll screw with it. But if we emphatically say we are not doing this anymore, and he makes it very clear, and you make the case publicly, and you have all of the red states, what I would tell him to do is direct the red states, because remember, the point of entry for anchor babies is not the land ports and the airports. It's the hospitals. It's the hospital administrator who submits the application to the state. That's actually how it's done. They need to be directed to not hand it out to people that cannot prove that they're here legally as a permanent resident. That needs to be done. And all the states need to do this. Here's what that's going to do. Right now, these idiots smartly took it in the ACLU to the First Circuit. First Circuit does not have a single Trump appointee, and it doesn't have a single Republican appointee on the active non-senior bench. Very smart. It's the most liberal circuit. We need Texas in the 5th. We need Missouri and Arkansas in the 8th, the best circuits to do it, so we can get the better judges to make those arguments and create a political momentum. Because if the first rulings come from the bad courts, it creates a political momentum, has nothing to do with the veracity of the legal arguments, and we know where the Supreme Court's going to head. That's what I would advise 100%. Trump on birthright.
Yep. All right, that's good stuff. I got 30 seconds. Anything else you want to highlight here before we let you go?
Look, I mean, just in general, we need to parlay optimism against vigilance. You know, fully push the good things, but obviously we cannot lose sight of the fact that we need to have fixed red lines. And like we saw with that imam, you complain to Trump, he'll often give you what you want. So be the squeaky wheel.
Great stuff, brother. Good to see you as always, man. Take care.
See you next week. Take care.
You bet. See you next week. Folks, don't forget about our friends over at PREBORN. They are the pro-life ministry that has been on the ground, saving hundreds of thousands of babies and their mamas from making the fateful, soul-altering choice of killing their children. And they do it with both truth and grace. They confront moms with the truth of the fact that that's not an unviable tissue mass, but a human person. When they hear that ultrasound and they hear that heartbeat of their child. And then when mom turns away from the potential of that grave sin and turns to the light, then they are there with the grace. And they're there up to 2 years after the baby's born with all kinds of prenatal and postnatal care. All the stuff they do, by the way, It's all free of charge. But of course, none of it is actually free. And that's where you and I come in. Make a tax-deductible donation today. You know, for as little as $28, you can fund an ultrasound that could save a life as soon as today. And you guys have saved so many lives by our partnership here with the Blaze and Preborn. Thank you for your generosity. Let's keep it going. All right, make that tax-deductible donation today to preborn.com/Steve. That's preborn.com/Steve, or dial pound 250 and say the keyword baby into your mobile phone. Dial pound 250 keyword baby, or just keep it simple. Head over to preborn.com/Steve. All right, that's going to do it for us today. Don't forget, we're going to stick around here and finish buy, sell, or hold in the overtime for Blaze TV subscribers. I've got a travel day tomorrow because when I booked this trip, I totally forgot about the time change and just majorly screwed everything up. So instead of a live show tomorrow, you're still getting a new show. But instead of a live show tomorrow, you're going to get a full 2-hour Theology Thursday evergreen. And I think you're going to really enjoy it tomorrow as well, especially in light of what happened yesterday at the National Cathedral. All right, so thanks to all of you for tuning in. Hopefully you're sticking around for the overtime. If you're not, Romans 8:28.